trying during this trip to do a lot of different mediums for you and methods. Large piece of stretched 140-pound Sanders Waterford hot press, smooth, and I'm going to do a Chinagraph pencil and watercolour and pastel on this one to show you that technique. I was going to do it actually out on site yesterday, but we got caught up with a beautiful scene doing a traditional block and blend pastel over a lake there, and before that in the morning we've done a large acrylic, which I can show you now. So this one will now go on display in the demonstration. Well, a recent trip to Oregon, and I got this rather nice scene when I was there. I did a painting there using watercolour Chinagraph pencil and pastels, and the S.A.A. invited me to do an article for Paint of a similar type scene and show this interesting and quite versatile method of using the Chinagraph pencil and over the top watercolour. Maybe a bit of Indian ink too, we'll see how it goes, because you can use that with it as well, but probably just the Chinagraph pencil and watercolour and pastel in this case. So let's follow this one through then and have a go at doing this Oregon scene of pine trees and snow in the mountains, just with a few colours. Now the thing with Chinagraph pencil is that once it's on, you can't rub it off very easily. So I'm going to start off the drawing just with an ordinary pencil, so I can rub out if I do make a mistake. Not that it really matters if we move a tree a few feet to the left or right. The thing with a drawing like this is, and a landscape is, things don't have to be exact. They can be changed to your wishes, as did Constable. Constable actually, in the famous Hay Wain, moved some trees about 30 metres apart and change them around completely. The actual picture, if you see the real scene, the trees are still there, is different from the actual scene. He's moved things as he wants them in his painting, which is what matters. So we could do that here, but I think the advice I would give is don't change things just because you can't do them or you can't get them right. Learn to draw, practice. Change them if you can get them right, but you want them slightly differently in the composition. It's your choice. Anyway, here I'm going to now just start off with a basic drawing of this scene, and a very, very light drawing, and then I'll work in with the Chinagraph pencil. Now what I've done here straight away is to mark the photograph into quarters, and then I mark the paper into quarters. It's approximately the same dimensions, and then I shall put this tip of this tree here where it is compared to that quarter, the quarter here, and so on with all of the salient points, and then just join them up a little bit like doing those comic magazines where you join the dots and the face appears. So I'll get all of these salient points correct to the quarters and eighths and composition, then just fill in the areas in between, making sure the angles are right. Then I'm going to go in with the Chinagraph pencil, and I'm going to shade in the darks, very, very dark, and then make some greys and midtones in between. But it's mainly to show how we can use Chinagraph pencil to do details with and still paint over, because the Chinagraph will allow watercolour to go over the top of it, and then we can just finish off with the pastels to give these lovely effects afterwards. So let's try this technique out. Well, hopefully you can see what I'm doing here then. You see the quarter marks made around here and subdivisions within that as well. And the same on the picture here. So for instance, halfway here, and this line of snow comes in just here, that far below and down at that angle, and it finishes just up inside the centre mark here, where that mark is there, and at the height of this one here. So I bring a line across here, where it joins there is where this starts. We get that angle going up, is that piece coming in here and up there. Same with the trees here, we've got this tree here just above here, it comes in on that mark here, so that's the tip of the tree here and here. And I just make all of these salient points first of all, and then when it's all correct and they're all in the right spatial awareness on the paper, then I should go in with the darker pencil. So let's finish that off. Right, well the basic pencil drawing is now done. I've got things into the positions that I want them in, which are as near as correct as I feel I need them anyway. And the next thing now is to be able to go on with the Chinagraph pencil. Chinagraph pencils are lovely things. Look, they have a string that pulls down here, and then you can just peel away the paper at the edge and end up with, not a point, but you can always sharpen it to a point if you want to, end up with what you want to use. Like that. So now we're going to make any blacks in here, the darkest very dark, and that means pushing quite hard. So we're going to leave all the lights behind. We may do some greys in, but up here for instance where these twigs are, it's going to be very dark, and we must make the marks very much about what is there. So these marks are not copying exactly, but just about exactly the marks of the branches and pine bits of these pine trees, pine leaves of these pine trees coming out in fronds. But make them, if they are dark in here, make them black with this Chinagraph pencil, and the paints will go across this. We'll lose them slightly anyway. So that's what I've got to do now to the whole of the picture. Whether it's very dark here, I've got to come in doing the same here and shade right in where the dark's dark everywhere. Even these little bits of pine leaf down here where it's very dark under there, really dark with this, and if it goes a bit lighter then we go a little bit softer with the pencil. That's the next job then. Right, I've laid all the Chinagraph pencil on now, and I haven't put a lot of greys in, just the very darks and some of the grey, the deeper tones amongst it, a little bit of texturing here and there. Now we move on to the watercolour. Right, I've set up the stretch paper. We've now done the Chinagraph pencil drawing. I've got water, I've got a large oval mop, I've got a number 6 round, and a set of paints out at the moment. At the moment I've got lemon yellow, aureolin yellow, yellow ochre, burnt sienna, quinquedrone magenta, turquoise, French ultramarine, and may not need all those colours. I'm going to just work them as I feel at the moment and see how it goes. They're all S.A.A. artist quality paints, which are very reasonably priced. Of course a water pot as well. My other brushes are here if I need them, and of course I'm going to need the photographs. I've printed the photographs in slightly different values, whether I've overexposed some of them and underexposed others, because I wanted more of the sky to show, so that one's overexposed to show more of the sky, but it makes the land very dark. That's the thing when you're taking photographs, is when you're taking photographs to take paintings from it, take 3. Take one of the sky area, take one of the ground area, and then take one of both, because the camera can't differentiate between very light and very dark, and it will over-exaggerate one or the other. So if you take those 3 photographs, you should be alright and have 3 photographs worth working from. I'm going to use the lemon yellow to start with on the sky, and I'm going to work wet into wet. I've also got a bit of tissue handy because I may want to dab out a little bit to leave it lighter in one area. For this job, for the sky, I'm only going to need the oval mop. I'm going to wet the whole paper first, and that's including where the trees are here, right up to the horizon line, along the horizon line. Remember, we've got a £140 hot pressed, which is very smooth watercolour paper. So the smoothest paper for this job. Nice even coat of water all the way across down to the horizon line. We're going to work from our lightest to our darkest, so I'm going to take a little touch of the lemon yellow at first. And I want that to go just up where I'm going to leave the sun shining above the mountain here. make a circle there. Very, very light, I don't want it too strong there. Very, very light, just coming out from the sunshine. And then I'm going to go across to my Quincadrone Magenta and let that come in around the outside of it. Just dab it around here, letting it flood down into the wet paint. It'll always come downwards in this case, a little bit around the top there, perhaps just around the top edge here. It won't go below, it shouldn't go below the level of the sun there. Then down to my, what a lovely colourful piece, then down to my turquoise, and that's going to come all the way around here. Very delicately, just let it go wet into wet, flooding down the paper to here. Look at the lovely effect we get with that. Coming out in bands, continuing that out, and we'll gradually come out to our warmer colours, and then we're going to work from our very cool blue here out to a much warmer blue. We're going to have the French ultramarine, which is a beautiful blue. Let that come a bit warmer into areas like this where the blue is just coming in, and it's a much warm blue. Don't overdo it or it'll spread too far, just little touches of fairly thin ultramarine here coming in to give the warmer blue against that. And remember that your watercolours are going to dry lighter than and put them on to get more of that beautiful turquoise going on in places right down into here, and here the same, right the way down, wet into wet, letting the turquoise and the ultramarine blend together to give this beautiful effect right up through here. And again we'll take the ultramarine again and just let that come down into here. Just let it trickle down. Put too much on it, it'll trickle too far, and you see I've got the paper on the tilt anyway. Get this beautiful effect now of the light blue sky and the sun shining on down through here. A little bit stronger there with the cool colours. Then go back to my warmer ultramarine and drop that back in there against it, so we get the ultramarine against the turquoise, which gives this lovely effect. And then I want to go to slight cloud effects, so I'm going to use a bit of burnt sienna, and you see how that gives these lovely fluffy effects through into the clouds, right the way down through the trees here, all the way down through here, down to these trees, like that. Just a little bit of cloud just coming through there. Just a little bit of cloud showing through into here. So a wee bit stronger at the edges here. Just gently dropping in. Take your time and control it. It doesn't want to be a hard edge, it wants to be soft. A bit of water there to soften it down. Now if I want to get a little bit of cloud going on, I'll take a little touch of my burnt sienna and add and add that to my ultramarine, which will give me a slightly warmer grey. And we can just add a little bit of that cloud just coming in through here. And perhaps a wee touch of cloud just happening here as well. Just come into the... This is a little bit of the ultramarine and a wee bit of the burnt sienna to give that a little bit of warmth. And cloud coming through. And that is a very simple sky, but it will do for what we want here. We'll let that dry off now. I'm going to continue this as a plain watercolour, then now I'll be putting in my lighter tones on the snow and gradually working through to the dark. We're going to do that with a pastel later, so what I want to show you now is how we're going to make this background colours for the snow, and then we'll put the lighter ones on again later with pastel. So I'm going to start off with still the same lemon yellow, just to start off with here, just to give a base coat to this across there, letting this, you know, that's how it would be if we were going to keep it just to watercolour, but it's not in fact. I'm going to go right down to pastel in a minute, and the same on all of these areas in the background of the snow here. We'll just mark out where they're going to be first of all with this very light lemon yellow. Then I'm going to show you how we can mix so many greens with the few yellows and blues that we've got, just so you can understand how this works. It comes right the way through to here, and it goes on in the background here, just so we know where things are. Doesn't really matter because I'm going to use pastel over the top anyway. Coming back to the turquoise blue, which might be a slight greeny tint to it now, but we'll come in with that coming down through the trees here. We'll see why later. And right down through the snow here, all the way down through here. And I'm going to let it come right the way up to here. I'll leave some of the tinted white, just a little bit. I'm going to put the rest in with pastel later. So we're using the paint now to take out the lighter areas and have these stronger turquoise, lovely turquoise blue going on in down to these trees. All the way down there. You'll see why later. Right up into here, through there, top edge. And it's going to be the same happening down here as well. Quite strong because and down here into the water as well, and here in the water I want to use a few more vertical strokes. I'm just going to use a bit of water, just come down through into there and let this cooler blue, wet into wet, come right up through here. Again, as I say, we're going to use the pastel to put the lighter areas in, so let's not worry about those lighter areas. Just want to show you this technique of how we can use let the Chinagraph pencil show through the watercolour. As you can see now, it's showing through the watercolour all the way up into here. Let's not worry about any light areas being left. Don't need them at the moment. Right down through here and right up into the behind here. It's cooler, lighter areas. Soften them out, don't have a hard edge there. a little bit of the magenta now. We don't need a very bright red on this, just a bit of magenta to bring in these tints into the snow. Through here, down through here the same. Warmer tints into the snow here. Make it a bit pinker around the edges of the water. Again, I can do some of this with pastel later. I just want to get the wet into wet effect of these at the moment. This is the magenta, Quincadrone magenta. Playing wet into wet through these areas. I'm going to go a bit stronger with this colour in a minute as well. Right it through there, and even a little bit behind here, and even a bit coming up into here. Now onto here again, it's a little bit stronger. So I'll take a wee bit now of the yellow ochre. I'm going to start using that yellow ochre now to make some of the warms and the greens. Yellow ochre dropping into these lighter areas here. Quite just little dabs of it on these edges here. Right down there to here. We've already had so we're doing our deep or darker colours at the moment. We're going to put the light back in later with the pastels. See, as a watercolour it's quite fun, and that magenta and yellow ochre, a little bit's going to be reflecting down into the water here, so we're going to do a few vertical strokes here just around the edges. Just letting that feeling of that. Now a bit of burnt sienna into that mix. Burnt sienna, yellow ochre. And we'll go a bit warmer still, down to here. Dots and dashes of it, just letting it flow down in between. So quite a bit warmer just there, just in these little bits here, as the light and the colours reflect on the. And we're going to put a wee bit of ultramarine into it now, and just use that ultramarine around the top edge of the reflections here. A bit stronger with the ultramarine and a little bit of burnt sienna as we used from the sky to make a blue grey. And I just want to find these lovely edges of the lake, bit of water here. Down through here. Just say we'll put something back in there with the. We'll use the pastels later to go back into there. I'm using it a little bit more strongly now. A bit warmer just there, those edges. We'll let that dry off. Now while that's drying, I want to show you how we can make different greens with these yellows that we've got and blues. Right, let's just take a look at what greens we can make. I'm going to use my small number 6 round, and we'll take the lightest yellow first, that's the lemon yellow, and I'll add to that lemon yellow a little bit of the turquoise, and we get a lovely bright green. And the more paint we put in, the stronger it becomes. So that gives us a very, very light. We can make it bluer by adding more blue if we want. So we can adjust the quality of it to more blue or warmer or cooler. Obviously the more blue, the cooler it becomes. So it's a very, very cool green just there. Now look, Now if we take the same yellow and we add some ultramarine to that one, we'll get a much deeper bluer green. You see you get a much warmer bluer. So that's that one. And if I wanted that yellower, I could I can graduate it from that down. Right, that's with the one yellow. Now if we take the, which we haven't used yet, this warmer yellow which we're going to possibly be using, this is the aureolin yellow, which actually in other yellows, in other makes, I find is much cooler than this. Take a bit of the, so this is the aureolin yellow, this one, the aureolin yellow and the ultramarine will give us a much deeper, warmer green. And down to our warmest of all, our yellow ochre. If we add to the yellow ochre some turquoise, we'll get a very warm but nice intense blue, green, sorry, a bit more yellow ochre into it. If I use the yellow ochre and ultramarine, we're really going to get a lovely warm green, much browner green, which when we look at these fir trees is quite important. And warmer still, to add to that same colour, a little touch of the burnt sienna, and we're looking at this pine tree warmth. Look at the lovely warmth we get then. So we're going with our lemon yellow and turquoise, a very bluey, bright yellowy green, and then with the ultramarine and turquoise, this one. Then we come down to the aureolin yellow and the blues, and then we come down to our ultramarine blue and yellow ochre, or even a bit of burnt sienna in. And that gives us all of these greens here that you can now see right the way through, look, to the warmths. If I want to go warmer still, I've only got to add a bit more burnt sienna to it, or I can even come in with some of the magenta. So there's our full range, from blues to cools to warms. Well, it's time to paint the trees now, and we're going to start with the lightest yellow that we just made. So we'll start with the lemon yellow and turquoise, which we won't need much of because it's not that green. So what I want to do is I'm going to paint the whole of the trees with it first of all of the trees. We'll come right the way down through here. We'll go into the darker bits later. So the lemon yellow, which is semi-opaque, we'll paint the whole of these trees to start with. They're getting much darker in a minute. We'll just get the lighter bits in first. So this is just a wash of the lemon yellow all the way across these, just to get it started off. Right up through here, down to there. There we are, wherever that lighter yellow is. Comes right down through these trees here as well. All this bit. My large oval mop I'm using. Through here too. Into here. Down through here. And then we're going to paint wet into wet onto that and let it gradually dry off. Right, now into that lemon yellow again, I put some turquoise to give me this very, very light yellow green. It's going to be mainly the yellow anyway, so I'm just going to tint down into this with this lighter yellow green, just not totally, just in the shapes of the outsides of the fir trees. The darks are already there with my pencil, and come back into it now with some of the deeper yellow, to take some of the aureolin yellow and just look how that yellow that is. It's not as dark as the yellow ochre is going to be yet, but it's way down, so it's a little mix of that, and I'm going to put a little bit of the ultramarine with that. So we've got mainly now the aureolin yellow going in there, which is a very warm green. And you can still see the pencil coming through. Bits of light of the trees. But we don't need too much because, as I say, the lights are going to do with the pastels later. That's why I'm doing it this way. It's lovely warm yellows down here, so almost orangey yellows. A bit more of the turquoise in with there, but this is in with the aureolin yellow to make the green now, so it's quite a yellowy green. You can see we can just drop down in between these trees to use gravity to get the feeling of these lovely warm green pine trees coming up here, right up through down to the background there. So we're going from lighter to darker. We've done our cools and we're now down to the warmer greens. All of that right down to there. If you make a mistake, you've got to worry too much because we can go back in with the pastels later to get them, bring them out. More of the ultramarine green now. Ultramarine blue, sorry, French ultramarine blue in with the yellow ochre now. I'm going to put yellow ochre in to make a much, much deeper green. So ultramarine blue and yellow ochre now to make a very deep blue green. And that's what we're going to start using up into here now. There's the tip of the brush slightly sideways to come over these, make these darks just show out a bit here. Don't want many lights showing through here, it's fairly dark all the way up there. Just plain watercolour at the moment. That comes all the way down into there, just leaving a bit of, actually making it darker and darker as I go along. So ultramarine blue and the yellow ochre to really get this lovely deep. The pencil marks just showing through. It's not too thick a paint. Going across the paint quite a lot to get the feeling of the pine branches. So get that look. Putting that behind here, being dark as well, just letting the shadows come down into there. Still fairly wet into wet. Plenty of that blue. Going down there. Very deep green. Now back up here, pure ultramarine, quite thin. I'm just going to paint the background here with the ultramarine and just the tiniest touch of yellow ochre. And I've waited until this is just dry enough underneath that it'll just blend very, very slightly, but not much. So ultramarine with the tiniest touch of yellow ochre in, just to give it a slightly green tint, and we'll paint all of this area of the background in to the distance here, coming down to the trees, carrying on with it right up into where these dark marks here, we'll go over these dark marks with this ultramarine and a little touch of yellow ochre in it, the tiniest touch, just to take it slightly off the green. Over the pencil will just take it brush strokes going back into the existing paintwork up here. Remember, we're going to go back into this with pastel in a minute as well to bring out these lights, so don't worry too much about that. Tip of the brush. If you are not managing with your bigger oval mop, then use a smaller number 6 to do this if you feel uncomfortable. These little darks that are up here that we hadn't done with the pencil. Right down where they come into the trees here as well. With this blue, a bit stronger with the blue. Just dropping a bit more. And the same up here as well, because there's a bit more blue coming up into these trees here. There we are, we've almost got that as far as we need that to go. While the blue's on the brush, we need to reflect it in the water down here a bit. So I'm going to come back down here, and what this is now dry. So with that ultramarine blue, I'm just going to put a little bit more of the blues into the edges of this, just to feel the edges of this ice here a little bit more. Maybe a wee touch of the magenta there. A bit more pink just into the edge just here, just to bring it forward. Right. While we're talking about pinks, I'm going to add just a touch of that magenta into the background in these trees, but at the lower edges, just a few to bring the edge of that tree forward. There. So that would have been the next stage there. And then with very, very thin washes, touches of the ultramarine, we can go back into the pine leaves a bit more. Yeah, we can hit these with the pastels later. I'll explain the numbers I'm going to use so that you'll know. Enough. Crisscrossing around and across. And I want to be a little bit greener now, so I'm going to make the lemon yellow again and the turquoise, and just go in now with a little bit more green to the foreground on these. I've done the warm up, so coming back in with a bit of cool into them now, just to get a bit more green going amongst these trees. So we've got the warmth and the cool of those trees here, fir trees, pine trees, coming up through. And I say we're going to be using pastels as well here later. Right up with the greens into here. Now it's the cooler greens. So the lemon yellow and a wee touch of the turquoise again, just to get a bit of cool amongst these warms. Even a wee touch up into the trees behind. Right, that should be the trees done well enough for the pastels later, so that's the next stage. Next we're going on to the ground down here. Okay, time for the warm background now, and to do that I'm going to start off with the green I was just using. So I'll take some of the yellow ochre and a wee bit of the turquoise into that. So this is yellow ochre turquoise, and just give a very thin glazing of that to unite things there and here. Because I'm going to use the white, some chalk, some pastels over this anyway, so that's that lot sorted. Now to go a lot warmer, so I'm going to take my magenta and start to drop that in quite strongly. Again, using the tip of the brush, just letting it come down into the greens here, flooding down. Get a lovely warm feeling. The greens just showing through, so letting it spread itself through here. So I went over the snow a little bit, that won't matter. Let's go back down to here. Magenta and a little bit of yellow ochre to give a warm. And we get a lovely warm going on right the way down through into that lovely warm coming all the way down through into here, especially here. Magenta, yellow ochre. Right up through there, through these trees here. Behind the trees a bit here, through here the background, that's all snow there, and into the background trees a little bit just to link them through. This lovely effect now. Right down here now, add in more yellow ochre. Quite strong on the yellow ochre down here, quite warm, quite dark in fact. I don't want really any of the lighter colour still showing down here. I'm going to go warmer still, right down there. And here, up into there, back up into here. A little bit more blue into that, take a bit of ultramarine into that same colour. So I've got now the magenta, a little bit of yellow ochre and a bit of ultramarine. So we're going quite deep with our colours now. They want to come all the way down into here with a sort of purple tint. Just letting it go wet into wet. So it comes down into these darker areas here, letting it spread down there, letting it flow down, giving us a texture. Could use a sponge if you wanted. We might even do that in a minute just to add another dimension to this. A bit more ultramarine going in here along the snowy edge to make that snow stand out more and have the shadows in between the trees here. Up and down through here a bit. and put a little bit of that warmth up here into the trees, just to warm these foreground trees that little bit more. This is about done, so not too difficult, was it? We just needed the southern colours. Right, let's have a look at my 72 set now, and I've taken out from it these colours, which you could probably do with less, but as I'm a colourist and I really do like to find the colours in a picture, I've chosen this one. So it's brown, which is a BE18, an RE11, which is a warm, sort of almost burnt sienna, but redder, a 36, an A36, which is a deep purple, BB12, which is a lovely ultramarine, OB7, which is a light turquoise, A40, which is a brown grey, green 26, which is a mid-green, light 1, which is white, A45, which is lovely pink, BG6, which is a very light blue, Y6, which is a very light cream, very deep blue, almost like a Prussian A50, and a much lighter, cutting the sunlight, green 29 for the sunlit tips of leaves, and a deeper, a mid-purple BV5 and an A34 purple grey. That's a green 26, which is a nice dark green. Be enough to do me. I don't think I'm going to have to go on to any of the others, but we'll just work these up bit by bit, and I'm going to start in this case from my lights and work down to my darks. Now you might be tempted to start with the whites, but I wouldn't do that. Leave your darkest and lightest to the end. Let's start with some of the mid-tones. I'm going to start with this very light Y6 cream tone, which is to bring out the snow reflecting from the sky here with the pinks and the yellows. And little bits that are going on between here. Pure colour, press fairly hard and just make some lovely pure colour marks of the snow coming down through the trees here. Right down, it comes down over here as well. There's a piece in between, just to the left of those there, it's down in between these, bit of snow there. These very light cream yellows reflecting with the snow from the sunlight. That's what I want to do at the minute. So I'm not putting the white on yet, I'm just getting these mid-tone reflective light colours first. And this is why we wanted a smooth pastel paper, a smooth paper, because if I wanted to do a snow scene and have a lot more texture, then obviously I could have gone for a knot paper or something that had a bit more texture and more snow-like, but I didn't want to do that here. Just wanted these textures to find this. That's the cream on there, and wherever else we see it now, so if we see it down here on the snow, I've got to put it down here and through to bring my darks back in a minute, so don't worry about the other bits of dark snow to come in here yet, still to come. Let's just get these light bits in over the mid-tones that we did with the watercolour. This is why we want to use the watercolour that little bit more thickly, so that it allows this pastel to show on top. And look how lovely and light it suddenly starts to become. The light suddenly starts to shine out here as it catches bits of snow in between and behind. And coming across here, and you can see why I said it didn't really matter if we make any mistakes, because we can touch it up with the pastels afterwards. Suddenly it comes to life, doesn't it? Right back behind these trees here, little bits of light coming through, all the way through down to here, where we've got some light in between the trees. You might want to take the paper for a pastel to do something like this, because it's nice to be able to use the pastels sideways, not just the tips of them like this, which I'm not doing with this set, because I just want to have the numbers here for you to see, so you know which ones I'm using. See, it's all coming, makes sense now. Get some bits of dark back in here in a minute. Right, that's my very light yellow used. I want to go down a tone to a little bit more cream. This is a slightly warmer yellow now. This is my A7. It'll be a little bit warmer up here in places, a little bit more warmth of pink or cream into these reflections coming down the mountains. It's a warmer yellow. Let's look at the light blues now. Very, very light blues going on, coming into here, down through here, which will play against these warmer, brighter colours. It's not just white, it's light tints playing one against another, which will give us this sparkle. That's what I'm after. Down into here as well, the cool colours of the snow in amongst the trees here. Cool colours back in there. Before I put the very light ones in, this is just the lighter tints, if you like. Over here, going behind here, right through and to the background here. And then there's a lot of it going on down through to the water's edge. And I've got a bit more turquoise to go in as well, but this very light blue here, reflecting on the ice, giving it that cold, glassy. Now we're playing the warms against the cools, you see. It comes in back here as well. You could do this with just watercolour, but it wouldn't be nearly as easy, and it's very effective, isn't it, with these pastels like this. You're starting to get this glistening of the snow now, as we play warm against cool, with a thicker pastel on top, catching the light. Right, we've done our warmer colours, our cooler colours I mean, there. I'm going to go to a pink now, and I want to get a very, very light pink, just reflecting into, before putting the white on, just reflecting from this sun onto this. Very, very, very light pink. This one is a A5, and that's going to play against the cools in the background, especially down here where we've got quite a bit more of the pink coming in the foreground here, lifting it forward. Same here, going up into amongst these yellows and the cool colours as well to bring them out. I even have a little bit of green down in here yet. Right, and finally now with the snow, before we go on to doing the trees and the whole background, the white, very carefully done, don't overdo it. Let's just find where these light areas are, like this, for instance. So back in over the final highlights of the white, just to pick out where the sunlight catches on here. It really brings the mountain out and gives it 3D. We haven't just got white blobs or white paper left behind. We're really finding these lighter colours. Look how that makes that mountain stand out now, as if it is solid rock up there. And down here where there's little bits of snow, and between the pine trees here there's a little bit. Certainly down here there is quite a big bit of white just there. And we can feel the difference between this more opaque medium and the beauty of the watercolour. And the dark pencil is still gleaming through, it's still there. And now we can start to use it up here as well. It comes down to here, a bit behind. These bits here, pure white, pushed on really hard to keep it really nice and thick and opaque. Pure white into that, on top of these colours, to loosen up and lighten up these lovely bits of ice. But we need all of these colours here to make it sparkle and make it work. I get tired of people who just see clouds as white, or surf as white, or snow as white. Yes, there's hundreds of ways to paint, and there's many ways that are right and many ways that will work as well. And you can do a very limited palette picture. Less is more. but other times we need to really find and look for what's going on in here. And look at the texturing now of this snow. It's totally changed from what it was. And our pencil is still there, our details are still there. It means we can do an even more detailed forest than this. We could do lots and lots of twigs and branches and all sorts using this and even black Indian ink. And then watercolour, and then we can tint with pastel if we want to after that. There are hundreds of permutations. There isn't just one way to paint, this is just one way that I'm showing you. And down gradually towards our greys. We can start to work in some of the warmer greys into it now, here and there. Here, and this is a slightly warmer grey. This is a, what is it, an A40, which is a slightly brownish soft grey. I just want to bring out some of these lovely tones here as the warms come into the foreground. Little bits of warmth into the snow here as well, just to pull it forward. We've had our very lights now, and we're going downwards towards our stronger warms and things now. Let's go down here towards the warmer browns. This is a B.E.A.T, which is a very warm brown, to come to the foreground more here. Just give a little bit more texture. You could have done some texturing with a sponge, and this if you wanted to, with a sponge and watercolour before I finished. So if I did it again, maybe I would do that to show you. So this isn't the warmest of the browns I'm going to use, it is a warmer brown. And I was talking about as warm as I want to go. I probably won't want to go much warmer than this one now. This is a red 11, which is quite red. And just really bringing out the foreground bits of warm in the pine cones and needles and things up here before I go down to my warmer purples and things. But just up into here. Now it brings that forward. Going down now to the mauves and purples, the medium mauves first. I want to get a bit more of this mauve going on into the snow where it's a little bit darker in places, and there's the odd little bit of texture happening. Down here, shadows and textures. So we go from warm in the foreground to cooler and cooler as we go into the background. And around the ice here we want to really feel this darker colour coming back into the ice. And verticals, even some of the little pine branches and trunks are slightly purple back into here. We'll put that in there, this very, very light mauve. We're on to the final stage of this picture now. As you can see how beautifully these pastels are coming out on top of this. And we're going to work onto the fir trees themselves next. I'm going to work two different greens up. I want to work up the lighter green on the surface of the branches that are sticking out here, and also this medium one first of all, which is sort of more green if you like, that just needs to come in over top of these trees here. Just lightly using the tip of the pastel to drag across and give the texture of these trees. This little tree coming, there's a couple of little trees just coming through here. I'll make this a little bit lighter in a minute. And there's a little bit of green just coming in on these edges here as well. You can see how it just adds that strength of tone and colour to the picture. And we've still got the Chinagraph pencil showing through, still got the darks there, and now we've got these additional colours. Lighter green, it's a green 26, this one. We're nearly done, we're well on the way with the picture now. The green coming down into these as well here through there. I can come back into my Chinagraph pencil to bring some of the darks out again if I want to in a minute. Just want to have a little bit of green reflecting onto the base here so that it links. And now to a lighter green. This one's a green 29. This is where I'm going to just pull out the sunnier bits of the pastel just on the edges of these branches coming through here, just to brighten it up a little bit. See how that brings the sunshine back into the picture as the sun shines down and across and through these items. We're almost there now. What I do need to do is go back into the sky here a little bit. I'm going to take some of the very light blue because there's a bit more light just shining through the pine tree, and I can just put that back in as if it's the sky showing through from behind here. Depends how much detail you want to go to. I mean, you can be very abstract with this, but don't have to be as detailed as this by any means. Light is coming down into the water a bit here as well, to drag a little bit of the light down through here just to feel that icy water a bit more. And I'm going to move back to the very deep blue here. This is the A50. It's a very, very dark blue. Just want to put in some of the deeper coloured darks against the background here on the trees. So you can see the whole thing appearing here. The cools against the warms, the lights against the darks, the rough against the smooth. I say the darks against the lights here at the moment, because it's much darker just into these corners. And I've done some of it with the pencil, but some of it now needs to be done with the chalk as well, with the pastel as well, I should say. And it makes it a much more coherent whole painting, doesn't it? These wee branches come down into here, the trees come down into here. The rainstorm seems to be passing by. Hopefully I've about done this, just to give you an idea of how we can use these lovely mixed medias together. Let me show you at the end of this a few paintings that have been done with this same technique of different types of sunrise, sunset, as well as daytime scenes like this one. Put my deepest, my most beautiful blue now and just come back in with a little bit more of that into the distant hills here. Just little touches of this blue through here to push that back into the distance against the warmth of the sun. And some of those colours and then come through into the foreground here as well. And I think we're just about there. Don't need to do too much more for you to have seen how that works. Amazing. A little bit more of deep purples next, just to finish off in here. Very deep purple now, which is a A36. And that should really bring these warms forward that bit more. And some of that purple can come into the trees in the background just to, again, play one colour against another here. It's very deep purple, just to finish off. Might have just one or two bits of light to go back in, but won't be much more now. Just with that dark purple, I just want to go back into one or two more spots here and there just to bring the darks against the lights a fraction more. Collect my white and make sure we've got the highlights in enough. I think I've about done all I want to do here. So this is a red 12, just putting a little bit more warmth back in some of these areas. Actually, I'm going to add one more green to this. I've got a lovely dark green here called a dark 8, which just will give me some of these bits of darker green coming into the background here. Just want a bit more of this deep green amongst that, to give me that last bit of texturing that I'd like, especially up here. So finally what we can do is come back in with Chinagraph pencil. Now we could have used some Indian ink on this even, but I'm just going to come back in with the Chinagraph pencil finally, just to get a few more of these bits of detail that we lost. The bits of stick and branch here. Bring them out again because the pastel's gone across a bit of them. It'd be nice just to have some of these blacks a bit blacker in here again, especially in the foreground where the details are, little bits of twig and branch and stuff going on here. There we go, that will do that one. Let's put a signature in. Well, here I am with the final work.